Baghdad, 1095. The wealthiest city on earth. Markets overflow with silk from China, spices from India, silver from Persia. The Islamic Golden Age is at its peak. Europe is still crawling through the Dark Ages, while Baghdad has running water, hospitals, and universities teaching mathematics that won't reach the West for another 2 centuries. But in the middle of this prosperity, a 37-year-old scholar walks away from the most prestigious teaching position in the Islamic world. His name is Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, and he's about to write something that will haunt every financial crisis for the next 1,000 years. His warning was simple but devastating. When money loses its moral compass, societies rot from the inside out, not slowly, not gradually, catastrophically. Here's what makes this unsettling. Al-Ghazali wasn't talking about poverty. He was describing the wealthiest civilization of his time, a society drowning in gold but starving for meaning, an economy thriving outwardly but decaying inwardly. And if you look at the world today, record wealth, record inequality, record debt, record distrust, you start to wonder if he understood us better than we understand ourselves. To understand Al-Ghazali, you need to understand the world he lived in. The year is 1100 CE. The Islamic world stretches from Andalusia in Spain to the borders of India. It's not just an empire, it's a financial superpower. Baghdad alone has over 1 million people. Damascus, Cairo, Cordoba, these are cities with functioning banks, international trade networks, and sophisticated credit systems. Merchants use letters of credit called sak, the origin of the word check. They trade in multiple currencies. They hedge risks across continents. Meanwhile, Europe is fragmented, poor, and barely literate. London has maybe 15,000 people. Paris isn't much bigger. The Islamic world isn't just ahead economically. It's operating in a different century. But with this wealth comes something Al-Ghazali notices immediately. Inequality is exploding. Merchants are getting obscenely rich. Rulers are manipulating currency to fund wars. Speculation is rampant. Markets are corrupt. And the gap between the wealthy elite and everyone else is widening faster than anyone can comprehend. Sound familiar? Al-Ghazali was born in 1058 in Tus, Persia, modern-day Iran. He rises quickly through the intellectual ranks. By his mid-30s, he's teaching at the Nizamiya Madrasa in Baghdad, the Harvard of the medieval world. He's respected, influential, wealthy, but something breaks inside him. He starts asking a question that makes everyone uncomfortable. What happens when a civilization gets rich faster than it gets wise? He looks around and sees a society obsessed with accumulation but empty of purpose. An economy where everything has a price but nothing has meaning, where wealth is celebrated but wisdom is ignored. So in 1095 he walks away. He leaves his position, his salary, his prestige. He spends the next decade traveling, writing, and thinking. And when he returns, he's no longer just a scholar. He's a diagnostician of civilizational collapse. Al-Ghazali's economic ideas start with a simple observation. Money is not wealth, it's a mirror. He writes, a mirror has no value on its own. Its worth comes from what it reflects. Money is the same. Its power lies not in the gold or silver itself, but in what it allows people to trade, build, and cooperate. This sounds obvious now. But in the 11th century, when many Europeans still understood wealth mainly as land or loot, this was a radical insight. Money is a tool, nothing more, a facilitator of exchange. And from this foundation emerges his first devastating critique. Hoarded money is dead money. To Al-Ghazali, wealth locked away in chests, hidden in vaults, or buried in courtyards isn't just useless, it's socially destructive. Idle wealth doesn't circulate. It doesn't feed workers, fund trade, or support families. It strangles economic life. He describes it as freezing the bloodstream of society. When the wealthy hoard money, they create artificial scarcity. Not because resources are lacking, but because circulation is blocked. Prices distort. Markets break down. People suffer. This isn't a moral complaint. It's a systemic diagnosis. And it leads directly to his second major insight. Speculation destroys trust. Al-Ghazali has no patience for merchants who manipulate prices, create artificial shortages, or exploit crises for profit. He sees speculative behavior not as clever strategy, but as moral corruption. profit without contribution. He writes, "Whoever profits from the suffering of others profits from corruption." And corruption, in his view, is a contagion. Once it takes hold, it spreads through markets, institutions, and eventually the entire society. If this sounds like a commentary on modern financial bubbles, predatory lending, or crisis profiteering, it is, just written 900 years earlier. But Al-Ghazali isn't anti-profit. He isn't anti-business. He believes in trade strongly. He believes markets are natural and necessary. His real target is dishonest trade. Cheating, lying, using false weights, concealing defects in products, manipulating information. He believes markets function only when participants trust one another, and once trust collapses, the economy collapses right behind it. In modern terms, he's describing transaction costs, information asymmetry, and moral hazard, just without the jargon. Al-Ghazali's third major insight cuts even deeper. Currency debasement is theft. Medieval rulers, like many modern ones, often diluted gold or silver coins to stretch their budgets. They'd reduce the precious metal content by 5%, then 10, then 20. It was a stealth tax. Most people didn't notice immediately, but Al-Ghazali noticed, and he condemned it outright. To him, debasing currency wasn't just poor policy, it was betrayal. A ruler who tampered with currency was stealing from his own people in slow motion. What looked like a minor alteration to a coin's purity was the beginning of financial rot. He predicted that if states manipulated currency too often, the population would eventually lose trust, abandon the local coin, and start using stronger foreign currencies instead. 1,000 years later, this dynamic played out in Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina. Every modern case where people flee their own money because they no longer trust the promises behind it. Al-Ghazali understood something economists still struggle to admit. Money is ultimately a belief system, and once people stop believing, the system stops functioning. But his critique goes beyond currency manipulation. He understands something deeper about human nature. People hoard out of fear. They speculate out of greed. They cheat when they think they can get away with it. They manipulate money because money is easy to manipulate. And when a society reaches the point where exploitation becomes normal, collapse is already underway. This belief guides one of his most powerful insights. You cannot fix an economy without fixing the incentives that shape human behavior. Laws matter, markets matter, but behind them all are people making choices driven by emotion, ambition, fear, and desire. Unless a society's systems align those incentives toward productive, honest behavior, the economy will drift toward corruption, instability, and self-destruction. This is why Al-Ghazali places so much emphasis on the moral dimension of wealth. To him, wealth without responsibility is not just spiritually dangerous, it's a threat to the common good. He writes, "Wealth is not inherently bad. It is simply incomplete without purpose. A society grows strong when individuals contribute more than they extract, when the drive to accumulate is balanced by the duty to uplift. But when wealth becomes detached from social responsibility, when the pursuit of profit ignores the welfare of the community, the system becomes brittle. A selfish society eventually collapses under its own weight. And once it collapses, everyone pays, including the wealthy who thought they were immune." Al-Ghazali's warnings didn't emerge from abstract theory. They came from watching real states behave in real time. In his lifetime, the Islamic world was fragmenting. The Abbasid Caliphate, once the most powerful empire on earth, was losing control. Local governors were pushing for more revenue. Dynasties were fighting for legitimacy. And as always, when rulers felt their grip slipping, the first place they tightened their hands was the economy. Some raised taxes to painful levels, others manipulated coinage to stretch budgets. Some seized merchant assets, others borrowed recklessly and left future generations to deal with the consequences. None of these tactics were new, and none of them in Al-Ghazali's eyes solved the underlying problem. He believed corruption at the top radiated downward like poison. When a ruler cheated his people, merchants felt justified in cheating their customers. When institutions failed to act with integrity, individuals no longer saw any reason to act with responsibility. The entire economic order, from the palace treasury to the neighborhood market, became a chain reaction of distrust. His conclusion was stark but simple. A society can survive poverty, but it cannot survive corruption. Economic collapse is rarely about running out of money or resources. It's about the breakdown of trust, the invisible glue that holds every transaction, every contract, every currency, and every institution together. When that trust erodes, even the wealthiest nation becomes fragile. By the time Al-Ghazali died in 1111, the Islamic Golden Age was already beginning its slow decline. Within a century, the Mongols would sack Baghdad. The trade routes would shift, the intellectual centers would fade. But the pattern Al-Ghazali identified didn't disappear. It repeated again and again across every civilization that prioritized wealth over wisdom. Rome debased its currency and collapsed. Spain flooded itself with New World gold and went bankrupt. Weimar Germany printed money and destroyed its middle class. The Soviet Union built an empire on lies and imploded. And today, we're watching the same dynamics play out in real time. Record debt, speculative frenzies, widening inequality, institutional distrust. Currency manipulation disguised as monetary policy. Al-Ghazali would look at our current system and say exactly what he wrote 1,000 years ago: where justice is lost, prosperity cannot remain. Here's the pattern Al-Ghazali identified, and it's uncomfortable because it's still true. Stage 1, a society becomes wealthy. Trade expands, markets grow, prosperity spreads. Stage 2, wealth concentrates. The gap between rich and poor widens. Speculation replaces production. Financial engineering replaces real innovation. Stage 3, trust erodes. People stop believing in institutions. They stop believing in currency. They stop believing the system is fair. Stage 4, corruption becomes normal. Cheating is rationalized. Exploitation is celebrated. Short-term gain trumps long-term stability. Stage 5, collapse. Not because resources ran out, but because the social contract broke. This isn't a moral judgment. It's a mechanical process. And it happens to every civilization that forgets the connection between money and meaning. Al-Ghazali's genius was recognizing that economics and ethics aren't separate domains. They're intertwined. A financial system built on dishonesty will eventually fail, no matter how sophisticated the math. Modern economists like to pretend money is neutral, a tool, a technology. But Al-Ghazali understood what they refused to admit. Money shapes behavior, and behavior shapes societies. When money rewards greed over contribution, societies become greedy. When money rewards speculation over production, economies become fragile. When money rewards hoarding over circulation, prosperity stagnates. The incentives embedded in a financial system determine the character of the civilization that uses it. And right now, our incentives are broken. We reward financial engineering over manufacturing. We reward speculation over innovation. We reward short-term stock price manipulation over long-term value creation. We reward wealth extraction over wealth generation. Al-Ghazali would call this exactly what it is: a system designed to collapse. So what happens next? If Al-Ghazali were alive today, he'd look at our world, record debt, speculative bubbles, institutional distrust, currency manipulation, and he'd say we're already in stage 4. Corruption has become normal. Central banks print trillions and call it stimulus. Governments borrow endlessly and call it investment. Corporations buy back stock and call it growth. Billionaires hoard wealth offshore and call it optimization. And the average person, watching their purchasing power erode, their savings devalue, their future dim, knows something is fundamentally broken. They just don't have the language to describe it. Al-Ghazali gives us that language. This isn't a policy failure, it's a moral failure. The system isn't broken by accident. It's designed this way. And the scariest part? The people running the system don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're optimizing. They're being rational. They're following incentives, which is exactly Al-Ghazali's point. When the incentives are corrupt, rational behavior becomes destructive. The question isn't whether the system will collapse. History says it will. The question is what comes after. Because here's the thing Al-Ghazali understood that we've forgotten. Civilizations don't collapse because they run out of money. They collapse because they run out of trust. And once trust is gone, no amount of stimulus, no amount of monetary policy, no amount of financial engineering can bring it back. You can't print trust. You can't quantitatively ease integrity. You can't inflate your way to social cohesion. The only way to rebuild trust is to rebuild the moral foundation of the system, to realign incentives, to reward contribution over extraction, to punish corruption instead of celebrating it. But that requires something modern societies seem incapable of: sacrifice, discipline, long-term thinking. And until we're willing to do that, we're just repeating the cycle Al-Ghazali described 900 years ago. Al-Ghazali died in 1111, but his warning didn't. It echoes through every financial crisis, every currency collapse, every civilization that prioritized wealth over wisdom and paid the price. He wasn't preaching religion. He was describing reality. Money is not a mechanical object. It's a moral ecosystem. And when the moral framework disintegrates, the financial system follows right behind it. That's why his ideas matter today. In an era defined by record debt, speculative excess, institutional mistrust, and financial anxiety, his central message becomes a survival principle. If money becomes detached from morality, the system will eventually break. Understanding that idea isn't just financial education, it's financial protection, because history doesn't repeat. But if you don't understand it, it'll crush you all the same. The question isn't whether Al-Ghazali was right. The question is whether we'll learn before it's too late. And judging by the world we live in, the answer isn't obvious.